Hello and welcome back to Bookish. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. Walking's become kind of a big part of my old man retired life. It really helps to get my mind off things, which might be bothering me. Of course, it's good exercise. Being outside is incredibly important, something that I neglect too often. But I thought I would just film my walk, edit out anytime people show up or anytime I drop the camera, and then just do this voiceover along with that video. So this is Saturday Hodgepodge. It's my weekly wrap-up of books, booktube things, bookish things, anything else I want to talk about. As I'm doing my walk here, I am listening to Matthew from the Mayberry Book Club and Ami from channel name Too Hard to Remember, and their discussion about Booktube. They did a Zoom chat about Booktube, which was just great. I almost always when I'm on my walk, I listen to Booktube videos, and this one was great accompaniment. It's about an hour long, which is about how long I usually end up going for a walk, and they discuss all kinds of things. Sometimes they're personal to their channel, sometimes they're in general about Booktube, but I just found it to be really refreshing listening to two great booktubers kind of talk about, to a certain extent, insecurities about their channel in the beginning, where they want to go with their channel now. Essentially, Matthew interviews Ami about his channel, and then, some of that reality, I think, which is good for all of us to hear from other booktubers, and that is, how we sometimes feel about our videos, whether they're successful or not successful, and how we feel about ourselves in making those videos. So I really, really like that. It was a great way to start off my walk. And it reminded me of something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, mostly in regard to myself. You may know if you watch my channel that I do write. I'm working on a military history manuscript, which I finished, and I've really been struggling to go back to the editing. Because every time I pick it up and open and edit, I just feel like it's just awful. Like it's the most terrible thing anybody could have possibly ever written. And I read a few sentences and I correct some things, and then I look at my corrections and I think, well, I'm not sure the correction's better than the original. And I just quit in frustration because I haven't been able to even begin to make it what I hoped it would be. And this kind of brought up an old piece of wisdom, which I'm sure everybody's heard, and that is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I really think of all the little pearls of wisdom anybody's ever dropped on me, that one might be the most important, because in an attempt to make my book perfect, I'm not even really working on it, so I can't even make it good. I've literally let trying to make the book perfect, be the enemy of perhaps producing a book that's good, perhaps producing a book that somebody might want to publish, perhaps producing a book that I might want to publish myself if it can't get published traditionally, and that I need to get away from that no matter what I do, it's unlikely to be perfect. If you think about how often in the history of literature has a writer produced a book that comes close to perfection. Even the greatest writers, whoever you think the greatest writers are, when you read more of their books, you find that some of their books are not as good as the others, that they don't achieve that level of perfection very often. And then I thought, this kind of perfect being the enemy of good seems to be a problem that we have in our society as a whole. And just to relate it to, topics today, the most important topic, of course, being topics related to the pandemic and vaccines and masks. We hear people say the vaccines don't prevent you from getting sick, and we hear people say that masks don't work when we know those two things are not reality. What they're saying is that masks don't prevent, or that the vaccine doesn't prevent everybody from getting sick. That vaccines don't work perfectly, and that masks don't work perfectly. And we're so caught up in, the idea that if it doesn't prevent everybody from getting sick, that it's not worth doing, that we are literally, killing ourselves over this idea that we have to do what's perfect. We think about it in terms of government and government legislation. We want these perfect pieces of legislation that achieve the goals we want our government to achieve to make our lives here in the United States better, or wherever you live in the world, and that's really not going to happen. And while we should certainly fight for the things that we believe in, and want the things and want perfect things that we, the perfect thing for the government to do, we need to be ready to accept the good of what can be done, whether it's the government, whether it's your Booktube videos, whether it's what you're writing, whether it's what you're painting or making, or how you're doing your job. Good is good, and it doesn't have to be perfect to make a difference, and it doesn't have to be perfect to be good. So that's kind of my bit of philosophy and so-called wisdom such as I have here, which I thought I would drop in my Saturday Hodgepodge video while I'm taking this lovely walk. Okay, then, so for what I've been reading, I did finish Forget the Alamo, which was a nonfiction book, which I thought was really about the Alamo in the beginning of Texas independence, and really turned out to be a kind of a history of the Alamo, and kind of how we have created this myth-making around the Alamo that some people in our society are so kind of wedded to that they won't let go of it. They can't get rid of it. They insist on rebuilding this Anglo hero myth around the Alamo, of a bunch of white guys holding out against a bunch of not white guys in some kind of heroic effort to stand up for liberty and freedom. And the reality is that the Alamo wasn't really about that, and that certainly the Texas move for independence was, as the authors stated, and they got in trouble with the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, about, that the Texas independence was largely motivated by a desire to maintain slavery, that the way in which Stephen F. Austin had attracted settlers to Texas was by proving that it could be this cotton-growing place, and without slaves, cotton isn't economically viable. And so the people who moved to Texas to plant cotton, and they brought slavery with them, which was a problem because Mexico had emancipated slaves, and Mexico was an anti-slavery country after it gained its independence. And so the more Mexico moved to outlaw slavery, the more Texans became violent and reactionary. It also points out that the Texas Revolution was not, strictly speaking, an Anglo revolution. A group of people called Tejanos, who were Mexican citizens, largely Mexican descent, who lived in Texas, also participated, and they had goals of their own and things they wanted to achieve of their own, which are actually more a part of the whole history of Mexico in the period after it wins independence. And so initially, when I was reading the book, I didn't really like it. There are three authors, and each of the authors, clearly they traded off who wrote what chapters. I'm not sure that continued through the end of the book, but in the beginning it was there. And there was a distinct difference in style, and, just for me, it bothered me. And it bothered me because it was kind of an unacademic discussion of what I consider to be an academic topic. And old fuddy-duddy me thinks, well, you should write more academic prose in that case. But the part where it got to them talking particularly about the way in which the history of the Alamo was interpreted in the 20th century, in the 21st century, was really good. And I think one of the great ironies of the book is that Forget the Alamo talks about the very reactionary kind of white Anglo hero history proponents and their efforts to keep the Alamo, keep the myth of the Alamo alive. And the very people playing a role in that in the book in doing that actually showed up and opposed and tried to essentially make sure the book didn't get a lot of attention in the state of Texas, including Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who actually prevented the book from being discussed at the Texas State History Museum, which is just beyond ridiculous. I'm also reading a book called Quiet Flows the Una by Faruk Sehic. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's translated from the Bosnian by Will Firth. This book is recommended to me by Jen over at Remembered Reads, and I am really enjoying it, but I have to read this book slowly. It's not a very long book. It's only 192 pages, but it blends, I think, really beautifully, kind of a naturalism, and the main character being centered around the river Una with that same main character's experience in the war that took place in Bosnia. And it's just really, there's just really a lot of images and things to be processed, and the way in which the author puts things together are oftentimes just stunningly amazing, but it takes me a while to process, so it's not a book that I've been able to read quickly. I'm also buddy reading 2 books. I'm in the midst of buddy reading 2 books right now. The first one of those is How to Pronounce Knife by Souvankham Thammavongsa. Oh, wow, I just butchered that name. I'm sorry. And I'm buddy reading that with Courtney Farrader. It's a book of short stories. We are going to be finished with these, I think, the first 6 short stories today, and we'll check in. So I won't leave a lot of thoughts about that. But the author is of Laotian descent, a refugee, I believe, who came to Canada. His family came to Canada, and the books really center there. And so that's that book. And I'm also then buddy reading The Warmth of the Sun by Isabel Wilkerson with Marion Ryan, booktuber extraordinary and commenter Marion Ryan. And we are reading about 50 pages a week. We're going to have a nice, slow buddy read of this long book. And that's going well. And Wilkerson is just a really amazing writer. And I feel bad that I forgot to mention her in my list of women historians who I've really enjoyed reading and want to read more from. Okay, so I also wanted to shout out a few channels this week. There's a lot of prize stuff going on, I think, this week. I think the Booker Prize is going to be getting down to the short list soon. Anyway, I've been watching a lot of Booker Prize videos, so I just wanted to recommend Bob the Bookerer's channel. As the name implies, he's really interested in the Booker Prize, and he's been doing a lot of, he's been reviewing, I think, almost all the books on the long list, and those have just been really great reviews. I like book reviews, and I oftentimes watch book reviews for books I don't have any intention of reading, and Bob is really great at that. And also there's a channel called Freshly Read Books, and I don't remember the name of the creator, other than I believe her last name is Freshly. She has a pretty big channel, and she's been doing reviews of those books as well, and I've really been enjoying both those creators' takes on those books. So I'll leave links to their channel down below, or I'll leave a mention where you can click the link and go to their channel and look at their book reviews for the Booker Prize books, because I like I said, I've been enjoying those, and I'm one of those people who likes book reviews as well. Along those same lines, but not related to the Booker Prize, Karen over at Run Right Reads is doing a book review a day for the month of September, and I've been watching a few of those, and those have been great. I'll leave a link to Karen's channel also. And also, this is Shake Timber. A lot of people are reading plays for Shake Timber, and a lot of people are reading sonnets. Hannah over at Hannah's Books has been reading a few Shakespeare sonnets. Her last one I thought was, Shakespeare writing a sonnet so someone would slap him. But those have been great. And I just want to recommend, and I know Roz at Scallydangling About the Books mentioned this as well. If you're not subscribed to Tootight Lautrec's channel, you really should. Tootight has a whole series called the Shakey Sonnet Theater, in which they're working through all of Shakespeare's sonnets, and they're just really great videos. So I'll leave a link to that channel down below as well. And then finally, as I do oftentimes, or I wanted to do today, as I oftentimes do on my Saturday Hodgepodge videos, just leave a links to some music I've been listening to recently. And this is kind of in response to Mark Nash, who always tells me I should be listening, or should have been listening, to punk music in my youth. I am a late convert or late listener to of punk music, and my knowledge about punk music is really limited. So it's possible that some of the bands and songs I list are not, by aficionados, are not really technically considered to be punk, but maybe punk adjacent. So, forgive me for that. But these are songs that I like, that I think kind of fall into that punk category. So I want to start off with The Clash, The Only Band That Matters, and I'm going to list 3 Clash songs, since The Clash, my favorite punk band, again, because my knowledge is a little bit limited, and they are the only band that matters. So those 3 songs are 3 that I really like the best, because I think they kind of capture The Clash in that kind of, to a certain extent, in their kind of early punkish phase. That's White Riot, can't even say it, Death and Glory, and I Fought the Law. Those are 3 of my favorite songs from The Clash. Also, Rancid, I believe, is a punk band, and I really like probably their most popular song, which is Ruby Soho. So I'll leave the link to that down below too. Bad Religion is a punk band I remember that I was kind of introduced to a long time ago by one of my students when I was teaching. And so the song I linked here I think is a really good punk song. It has that kind of punk energy and spirit. It's called We're Only Gonna Die. Social Distortion is one of those bands I'm not sure is punk or punk adjacent or punk grunge or whatever the hell you want to call it. But I really like the song I Was Wrong. Number one, I consider it as a personal anthem because I'm wrong quite frequently. And I just like the whole attitude vibe of the song. And then a song I do remember, I think from the 80s, maybe it was the early 90s, by Suicidal Tendencies called Institutionalized. I like kind of the anger, the frustration, the young man angst of that song, which is, really, I think, at the heart of a lot of punk music. So there's that. And then a band I was introduced to, I'm about 97% sure, by Mark Nash, and that band is The Jam. And that song I want to link to is I Got By in Time. So that's linked down below. And then the Stooges, or Iggy Pop and the Stooges, I'm not exactly sure what they were going by at this time, but I'll leave a link to their song Search and Destroy down below as well. Anyway, there you go. There's my Saturday hodgepodge for today with a little accompaniment from Ike whining in the background as usual. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.